You remember the TV show Survivor. I wonder if it's still on, right? How many years has that been on? 13, 14, 15 years? What's the premise of Survivor? All these people who are above average in intellect and social skills go on this abandoned somewhere or another and have to live with each other for a few months at a time, and it's their objective to be the last one standing or the last one there on the island as the others get eliminated for some reason or another, either physical challenges or social games or whatever that is. And I look at that, and I was pretty caught up with it for the first year, and then after that I got pretty tired of it because I saw this was just the worst of the people's humanity being portrayed. Well, I'm starting to get on a soapbox now. I can already tell my heart rate rising, but the winner of Survivor is probably the most clever person there. They can use and manipulate other people for their own gain. They can have alliances, and as soon as those alliances get what they need, they can dismiss them and stab them in the back, so to speak. Cleverness is really prized in this game. If you're the last survivor, you're the most clever, you're the most whatever. And I'm thinking about this a manager who is probably doing a lot of the same stuff. Probably a very bright person. In those days, it could have been a slave. It could have been some hired hand, a very low. But taking advantage of people. And not true to the Jewish laws, which say you don't charge interest, first of all, for loans. So the owner and the manager both dealing deceitfully, wrongly in God's eyes because they're charging interest for loans. And not only a little interest, a lot of interest. They said loan sharking was just pretty much everyday occurrence in that world, in that time. And so when we look at this, they say, well, take your bill and from 100 to 50, maybe they just loaned him 25 to begin with. But there was so much interest that he wanted 100 for it. Or the 180, asked for 80. Maybe he only gave him 50 to begin with. And they charged him to pay him back 100. And so we look at this and we think, wow, this manager is really kind of a crooked salesperson, right? Doing the dirty deed of the rich owner. And then we have this. The owner comes to this manager and says, I've heard what you've been doing, you're fired, but I have one more thing for you to do before you get fired is to give an account of all your dealings. Okay. Now, in this world, I've heard many more cases, especially in corporate America, that if you're let go, then you have armed guards, you have armed escort, that you go to your desk, you pick on, and they watch you, right? And you pick out what you need to go, and then they escort you out the door. And that's the end of it. There is no more, oh, you're fired, but I have one more project for you to do. If I were being let go, I would say, see ya. You want this done? Tough luck. You've just fired me. I'm not doing one more thing for you. And yet this owner says, I want you to give an accounting. And I start to think about this a little bit and think, well, what does that mean? Why is he giving him this opportunity to make good, or to not make good necessarily, but to give an accounting so that the truth is going to be known? Why does he give him this leeway? Apparently he had some time because this guy was thinking that he had time to go to all these debtors and to make amends for all his misdeeds. Perhaps it's just a matter of this manager seeing the light after being called to the carpet. Sometimes we need to be held accountable, called to the carpet so that we get back on track. I wonder if that's what repentance is all about. And it doesn't say whether the rich owner rehires him. It just says, boy, good job. Clever, what you did. And the term shrewdly is just defined as having good judgment. And Jesus is saying, how come there's good judgment out there, but not good judgment when it comes to the children of light? And I wonder about that too. How come there's such clever means of making business happen, sometimes unethically, but mainly ethically out in the world to make things happen, but yet sometimes in church you're stopped and it doesn't work as well. He's asking that we be clever in all things, be clever in the way we deal with people, have good judgment when it comes to relationships, have good judgment when it comes to our money, our wealth, have good judgment about things that are God's, and which is everything. To be good stewards of what God has given us. The manager can be all of us. We can misuse what we've been given. We can act dishonestly in our own minds. We can act dishonestly in other ways too. But there's an accounting to be given. There's accounting to be had. And say, now listen, is this really the best use of your judgment or your best use of your time? Is this how you're using your gifts wisely and the best of your abilities? And in that world too, of course, this owner was happy in a couple different things. He got his money back, and he also saved face. And he was no way he was probably going to let his manager go because his manager got his money back. But we don't know that for sure, whether he was rehired or not, kept on board or not. And then the question comes about this loan from this rich man to the people. Do we owe God anything for the gifts that God has given us? Are we in debt to God? Are we in debt to each other? Do we owe each other? Sometimes, if we loan something out, we want to get it back, certainly. In some cultures, in some religions, you're accountable for 7 people on this side, 7 people on that side. Your neighbors, a saying. You're accountable for the people around you, your neighbors, to keep them on track, to make sure that they're well taken care of. You owe them a sense of your presence, your help if they need it. Does God give us things with strings attached? I'll give you this if only you do this for me. Or is it freely given and saying, I gave you this gift and you do whatever you want. I hope you're shrewd enough, clever enough, use good judgment enough to use it wisely and for the best interest, not only of you, but for the people around you, that you can cultivate good relationships. The children's book I was going to talk about was called The Turnip by Walter de la Mare. It talked about 2 brothers, half-brothers, one really rich and one really poor farmer. Had a couple chickens, a cow or 2, but he grazed turnips, and whoever came to his door got not only what they asked for, but much more. And this other brother, who was only out for himself, only gave to get us something back in excess, was very negative to other people, didn't care one whit about another person. A stranger comes to the poor brother and says, "Could you please give me a sip of water?" And he said, "Sure, I can give you as much water as you want. I get enough water to swim in, but better yet, why don't you come inside?" Gave him a meal, shared his dinner with him. And the stranger asked, "What do you do?" "Well, I do this and I grow turnips." He said, "Turnips? Wow, you're unusual because you have this heart of giving and compassion for other people." And the next day, this farmer goes out and he sees this turnip which is just big as a house. And he says, "What do I do with this?" He gets his friends together and they say, "Well, we could feed a whole family for years on this." Well, the one brother says, "Let's pack it up and take it to the king and give it as a gift." I'm sure the king has never gotten anything like this before. And the king was just overjoyed because he saw this and he inquired about this brother, and he said there was always good about this brother who was always kind to people and just gave what he had, even though it wasn't much, and gave him a place in his kingdom to be the turnip master, and put him home. And from then on, this man people kept coming to his house. He kept feeding him and welcoming him and showing them hospitality. And in the meanwhile, this other brother who was rich, well, he had heard about his brother. He said, "What, turnip?" He said, "I'm going to give the king something even better." So he sells everything he has, goes this one across the country and finds this ruby that's huge. Beautiful ruby. Sells everything for this ruby. This is what will get me into the kingdom. This will get me the good graces of the king and put me above my brother again. So he takes it to the king, and king is, "Oh, I've got 1,000,000 of these. This could be a toy for my kids. Thanks." He said, and I'll give you something in return. In the meanwhile, he finds out about this guy, and he said, "He's not a really good man at all. So I'm going to teach him a lesson. Send him home. I'm going to give you a really good gift. Wait, it'll come." It'll come to your house. So this rich man's thinking, what's it going to be? It's going to be all these riches. It's going to be this place in his kingdom. It's going to be all these wonderful things. And he sees over the top of the hill and coming the courtiers, and they see this thing coming and all these people. And he's like, this is it. He runs out, and they unveil a half of a turnip, that big turnip. And he runs. And he runs away. His heart was to himself. He has his wealth just for himself. He used his shrewdness only for himself. This other man used his cleverness, his shrewdness to help other people, to be a good man. And he was rewarded for that. Now, we don't get half a turnip because we do good things, but we get some satisfaction from people oftentimes. We get the satisfaction that we are fulfilling our promises, our callings as people of God to be with our brothers and sisters, whoever they may be or whatever they may need. And so we find that when we align ourselves with God's wishes for us, our lives are a little bit better, I think. A little bit smoother. We're able to take the opportunities given to us and use our judgment in the best way possible. And I think it's a good thing. Amen.